Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into this completely fascinating conflict that happens inside you literally every single day. We're going to look at why your brain's ancient survival system can just completely hijack your modern, rational mind, and more importantly, we'll cover exactly how you can take control back. So let's jump right in.
Here's our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll see why fear speaks before logic. Then, we'll look at the body's false alarms, followed by how modern life triggers ancient threats. After that, we'll explore why just understanding this isn't enough. And finally, we'll wrap up with actionable steps to actually manage that fear.
All right, section 1, fear speaks before logic.
So, let's start with a scenario I'm sure we've all experienced. Imagine you're home alone at night and you hear this strange noise downstairs. Now, your logical mind immediately says, oh, it's probably just the wind. But before logic can even finish that sentence, your body has already reacted as if an intruder is standing right there in the room with you. We actually experience this exact same override right before a job interview or, say, public speaking. Logic confidently says, hey, I can handle this, but fear leans in and whispers, yeah, but what if you can't? And as we all know, fear usually wins that shouting match. Why? Well, because our brains simply were not designed to make us feel calm. They were designed for survival. Which brings us to a tiny but super mighty part of your brain called the amygdala. You can think of it as this built-in radar system that is just constantly scanning your environment for danger. But here's the catch. It does not sit quietly and wait for all the facts to come in. It reacts, and it reacts fast. Think about our ancient ancestors walking through some tall grass, confusing the wind for a hidden predator. Well, that just cost them a few seconds of totally unnecessary panic. But ignoring a real threat, that cost them their lives. So the amygdala developed this harsh but highly effective rule. It is far, far safer to react to a false alarm than to risk ignoring a real threat. And this perfectly illustrates why fear literally always reaches you first. You see, logic patiently waits for probability, while fear frantically responds to mere possibility. Just think about when someone doesn't reply to a text message right away. Your brain doesn't sit back and wait for the highly probable reason, like, they're just busy. No, it immediately jumps to the absolute worst possibilities. Are they mad at me? Did I say something wrong? Fear completely takes the driver's seat, based purely on what could be.
Moving on to section 2, the body's false alarms.
Now, notice how your physical system just ignites. This fear, it doesn't just stay in your head. It cascades through your entire body. When your amygdala detects danger, it triggers a full-body stress response, prepping you to fight, escape, or just freeze. Your heart beats faster, your breathing gets shallow, your muscles tighten up, and your digestion just completely slows down. You can try to tell yourself, hey, this work presentation isn't dangerous, but your shaking hands and racing heartbeat are forcefully backing up a terrifying story. The fear feels entirely believable because your physical body is acting like it's a concrete fact. Actually, this is exactly why simply telling someone to calm down almost never ever works. Logic shows up as rational words, but fear shows up as an overwhelming physical experience. Because of this intense physical reaction, our brains study danger super deeply to prevent it from ever happening again. But sometimes it gets a little too overprotective. Logic sees one painful experience for exactly what it is, a single isolated event. Fear, on the other hand, sees a permanent warning sign. So a single failure suddenly turns into this ironclad rule of, I should never try that again. Or one rejection morphs into, absolutely no one can be trusted. And this overprotective nature leads directly into what we call the imagination spiral. The human brain absolutely hates uncertainty. When information is missing, fear just steps in as the head writer and directs an entire catastrophic movie out of thin air. Let's trace it, right? 0 seconds, your manager texts you, can we talk tomorrow, with literally zero context. 1 second later, your brain decides you definitely made a huge mistake. 2 seconds, you're getting fired. 3 seconds, your entire life is falling apart. You end up suffering through events that haven't even happened, simply because fear uses the empty space of uncertainty to furiously prepare you for the absolute worst. Which brings us to section 3, modern life, ancient threats. We evolved to run from predators, survive food shortages, and escape violent conflicts. But today, that exact same alarm system gets triggered by a critical email, a low number of likes on a post, or just a really awkward conversation. So what happens when this ancient survival programming meets the modern world? Well, under intense stress, your thinking narrows from asking what is most likely to what is the absolute fastest way to feel safe right now. For most of human history, belonging to a group quite literally meant survival. Being excluded was physically dangerous. So you have to realize your fear isn't proof that you're weak. It's simply evidence that your brain is applying an ancient protection system to our modern world. It is treating a delayed text message with the exact same life or death intensity as being exiled from a prehistoric tribe.
All right, section 4, why understanding isn't enough. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, I logically know all of this, so why on earth do I still feel so afraid? It is such a common frustration. You logically know the fear makes no sense, but just like you don't need logic to pull your hand away from a burning hot stove, your brain's emotional learning happens deeply and totally automatically. Just repeating there is nothing to fear over and over doesn't instantly turn off a primitive alarm. The fearful part of your brain learns pretty much exclusively through experience. To actually teach the alarm to turn off, you have to repeatedly show your brain that you entered an uncomfortable situation, and this is the crucial part, that you survived it.
And finally, section 5, actionable steps to manage fear. So how do we actually apply this in our daily lives? Our goal today isn't to eliminate fear entirely. I mean, fear is a really useful warning system when there is actual, genuine danger. Our goal is just to stop treating every single fearful feeling as a concrete fact. This protocol right here is how you reclaim your mind using calm breathing and logic. First, distance yourself by naming the threat. So instead of saying, something terrible is going to happen, try saying, my brain is creating a threat prediction. Second, logically separate facts from possibilities. What evidence actually exists right now in reality? Third, and honestly this is the most vital step to master, calm your physical body using slow, deliberate breathing. Unclench your jaw, drop those shoulders. Only when your body's breathing slows down can your logical thinking finally break through that wall of fear. And fourth, take a small action without waiting to feel completely fearless. Send the message, walk into the room, just take the step. You know, courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is simply the choice to not let fear make every single decision for you. Remember this, a loud alarm does not always mean there is a fire. Sometimes it just means the smoke sensor is way too sensitive and it's reacting to a little bit of burnt toast rather than a blazing inferno. Fear might speak first, and yeah, it might be incredibly loud, but remember, it does not have to make the final decision. Between the feeling of fear and your response to it, there is this tiny but incredibly powerful moment. The next time your ancient survival system flares up over a modern inconvenience, will you use that moment to breathe, examine the evidence, and remind yourself, who is really in charge?